All right, this meeting shall come to order.
Recording in progress.
Are we good on audio? Can our folks online hear us? Got a thumbs up from Deborah. Thank you. All right. Welcome to the May 26th, 2022 meeting of the Twin Cities German Immersion School Board of Directors.
Recording in progress.
We will begin with a roll call conducted by our Executive Assistant, Julia Henriksen.
Director Albers.
Here.
Director Alcatuch.
Here.
Director Bell.
Here.
Director Dayton.
Here.
Director Eberhardt.
Here.
Director Heitz. Director Iwan.
Here.
Director Kuitzenga.
Here.
Director Linnell.
Here.
Director Müller. Director Rod-Josvik.
Here.
And ex-official member Executive Director Christensen.
Thank you. And we welcome Director Hyde. Just finished the roll call. When we convene as a board, we open with the school's mission, vision, and values. The mission of the Twin Cities German Immersion School is the innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Our vision is andere hören, andere sehen, felt offen denken and handeln. And our selected values are curiosity, kindness, challenge and support, intercultural engagement, and community. We welcome those of you attending this public meeting and thank you for being here. If any of our attendees would like to address the board during the open session, please send a chat to our board assistant so that we can prepare for that. So tonight I'd like to dedicate this school board meeting to the children and teachers who lost their lives in the senseless school shooting in Texas 2 days ago. We come together tonight as a board to ensure that our school is meeting the needs of our students and staff. We do this through careful planning, thoughtful discussion, thorough evaluations, and active collaboration to fulfill our mission for our community. This month also marked the passing of Tcgis's co-founder, Mary Fred Bausman Watkins. In March, the board dedicated and named the Tcgis atrium after Mary Fred, and we were honored to have her in attendance via Zoom. May her joyful spirit live on through the vibrant energy in the halls of our German Immersion School. Today, when I opened the room brief, I saw some beautiful examples of joy at Tcgis, and it was a day brightener. So thank you for sharing those insights into what goes on at school, Director Christensen. We have a full agenda tonight with several topics under consideration for board approval. I'll go through a few meeting protocol reminders. Please raise your hand to be recognized by the chair or to comment and ask a question. The chair will ensure everyone has had a chance to speak before recognizing a member to speak for a second time on a topic. Please make a motion and seek board approval for any specific directives for the school's executive director, and address any questions to the executive director, who can then elect to delegate to staff members if they're in attendance. All right, the first item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Are there any proposed changes to the meeting minutes from last month's board meeting? And are there any changes proposed to the agenda for this evening? All right, I'll ask for unanimous consent to approve the agenda. Any objections? All right, agenda is approved. Next is the board response to letters. We received 2 letters this past month. One was regarding the masking re-implementation of required masking a month ago. And another letter was regarding the bus program. We've responded to those emails and they're in the packet for public review. And that brings us to our open forum for this evening. Julia, is anyone asking to participate via open forum?
No.
I'll just remind everyone the protocol for open forum for future reference, that the board welcomes community input. Please be advised, however, that if your comments are about a specific person, the board expectation is that the courtesy of speaking to that person in advance has happened. Moreover, due to Minnesota data privacy laws, the board can entertain no oral comments about individual personnel matters, negotiation matters, business contracts, or real estate transactions. Such matters should be addressed to the board in writing. All open forum concerns from the previous month have been followed up on by the director, the board chair, or both, if follow-up seemed necessary for the exchange of information. For more information on this, please refer to the Tcgis School Policy 206, Public Participation at School Board Meetings, available on our website. All right, that brings us to our special recognition for this evening. We have many people that we're recognizing. All right, so we'd like to start out recognizing our amazing PTO, specifically for the amazing mask and ball event that they planned and hosted a month ago. It was a huge success, a great fundraiser and a great unity builder for everybody. My husband and I attended. We had a great time on the dance floor and had a good time catching up with people that we haven't seen for so long. So thank you for making that possible. I'd also like to recognize the PTO for their strudel and plant sale. Really fun opportunities to buy some German-inspired cuisine and beautiful plants to kick off spring. So we'd like to recognize Erin Myers, Heather Cooper, Candace Davis, Kirsten Wright, who's in attendance. Thanks for attending. Brenna Gray, Christine McKidney, Deb Verber, Chris Tabish, Laura Murtha, and Alyssa Lambert. I also want to mention before we move on to this, the PTO also put a lot of work into Staff Appreciation Week. Kevin, would you like to comment on staff appreciation?
Sure. Yeah, we would like to thank everybody who was involved in that. I understand it was parents who and who were preparing things for teachers throughout that week. We really felt appreciated. I also want to extend this to administration and our fellow board members for also the 2 days that were granted this one in the fall, one in the spring. I think that's this week and the other actions that came before that really made staff feel appreciated during this really tough year. And we would like to thank everybody for that.
Thanks, Kevin. Thank you, PTO. All right, next we'd like to recognize our candidate forum hosts and moderator.
Yes, thank you. As part of the NOMCOM, as it's called, working with the candidate forum volunteers, the host, Jake, as well as the parent council and the PTO. It's so helpful to get word out and really, make sure that our candidates for the board are being seen each spring. So it's kind of been a really good leveled out thing. It's been very easy and quick to get the group back together in the spring, and all of a sudden, boom, here we go. So thank you to Carrie Ray and Mike Mitchelson for helping with that, as well as Candace. And like I mentioned before, Jake as well for hosting a really easy night that we continue to be very successful with over Zoom. So thank you very much.
I'm gonna say maybe not so easy for the board candidates, but they did an awesome job. So thank you for participating in that. All right, next we'd like to recognize our Girl Scout troop leaders. Director Linnell.
Yeah, the Girl Scout troop leaders are some of my hero volunteers at Tcgis. They do an enormous amount of programming with the girls, starting in the very early grades, the daisies, all the way up to where my daughter is and cadets in 8th grade and everything in between. We have such a large troop at Tcgis that it is Tcgis specific. We don't have girls from other areas just because our troop is so large. It's one of the largest in the River Valley Council, which is a testament to the quality of the programming that the people here listed offer. Maureen Carlisle, Cindy Miller, Carrie Nelson, Kirsten Homeland, Peyton Mercer, and Amy Lawler. They do a wonderful variety of things, both at school, after school on Tuesdays, and then take the girls out into the area to experience other things. They did gardening at the rain gardens this fall with some other Como community members and D10, and they went all the way out to Waco Cooking School in Eden Prairie to have a class out there. And they do other field trips like to the Midtown Global Market. So remarkable job, especially during the pandemic, of keeping those girls connected and giving them positive role models. So I appreciate them greatly. Thank you all.
We had a question from Director Bell. When did that Girl Scout
Yeah.
troop start?
I think it started, my daughter's in 8th grade. I think they started with Brownies in 2nd grade, and it's been going continuously since then.
Awesome. All right. Next, we'd like to have our directors who chair committees recognize all the volunteers and staff who have contributed to the board committees over this past year. And they'll also highlight some of the key accomplishments that their committee achieved this year. So first, we'll start with Director Iwan.
Yes, I would like to thank the volunteers for the Communication and Outreach Committee, namely Mary Zimmerman, Ellen Thompson, Mary Henry, Liz Kastner, Chris Vish, Diane Bell, and Katerina Scherg are wonderful admin contact. The biggest accomplishments this year were a number of great newspaper pieces in local press, some of which were provided by the committee, and others kind of grew organically out of interest by reporters. And so that's great that that group of people are keeping an eye on what's going on at Tcgis. We ran a successful marketing campaign in December through February, and that was a lot of work for creating web ads. So thank you to the graphic designers for that. And then finally, I'm hoping that we will successfully wrap up the last piece of business today, and that was a refresh of the Tcgis brand and logo. There will be a presentation by Mary Ellen and Liz later today. In any case, I thank all of them for their dedication and hard work this year.
The next committee is the Diversity and Belonging Committee, chaired by Director Eberhard and Director Ruth Ustig.
Okay. We want to recognize everyone who is on the Diversity and Belonging Committee and the staff working group subcommittee for their awesome work this year. I'm reading the names first, and then we have some pictures to share. So I want to recognize Rachel Schlee, Delaney Jacobson, Brenda Van Dijk, Richard Hyde, Emily Roberts Johnson, Amy Pierce, Andrea Struss, Michael White, and Kirsten Christensen. And my co-chair Kevin Eberhardt. And then you can go ahead. Oh yeah. We want to share some of the accomplishments of our committee work this year. So we have been able to implement the Heritage Month celebrations in our school curriculum. Here you can see some pictures of some of the 8th graders and some of the elementary school kids working on the activities that were done by teachers for our students and with the students. Next, you can see that we have increased books by diverse authors and in the school library. Can go ahead. We had staff training that was done on one of the PD days. Here are some pictures about that. We all know about the projects with that we just had, that we hosted in April and May with the JCRC. And finally, some events that were planned for the Tcgis community around diversity. Here you can see some pictures. Events. Yeah. Oh yeah. We did more. We also looked at the school calendar together with the school calendar committee or calendar committee, and have some holidays included in the calendar and marked as special days. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Director Hyde, Finance and Facilities Committee.
Hey, I also want to thank everybody that joins us every third Tuesday of the month for our Finance and Facilities Committee. The parents that join us are Matt Burris, Alyssa Moffett, Mike Mickelson, and Jacob Seltz. We have board members that join us, and Lubert, Lisa, and Chair Alcatute. And from staff, or from admin, we always have Ashley and Director Christensen, and Brenda Keese also joins us every meeting as our accountant. So thank you all for joining. And our accomplishments this year are super exciting. We
No pictures.
You had to put me after the teachers. Actually making slides, and don't think I didn't notice the 4 things under 3 events. But the general, oversight of our financial statements every month and oversight of the audit process that we do every year. This year, special accomplishments are in junction or partnership with the admin team developing the campus planning subcommittee that we're all super excited to see how that brings the campus into the future, and working on the budget for next year is in process. So thanks again to everybody who is on the committee.
And the Fundraising Committee led by Director Bell.
Yeah, so we have a great group of people on our fundraising committee, which has an important role because we try to raise money to help offset other expenses at the school, to pay for enrichment things, interns, programming, professional development. So our members are Sarah Erkinen, Kirsten Reich, who will be succeeding me as the chair, Alyssa Moffett, Aaron Myers, the Energizer Bunny, Stephanie Simpson, Lubert Kwicenga, Director Christensen, Katarina Sherrick from the admin side, and Mary Zimmerman. So thank you to them for helping us. We meet every month or every other month it's been on the first Tuesday at 8:30. So our accomplishments this year, our annual fund goal for the year is 110,000. So that represents a 7% increase over what it was last year. We have 2 big chunks in what we do. The first one is Give to the Max Day, which is our fall fundraiser. And that was November 19th. So our goal there was 45,000. We actually ended up with 52,690. So we exceeded that goal. We count actually not just what came in on that day, but a lot of things trickle in through the end of the year. So that would be, you know, by the end of December. The tradition, what we've been doing is tying it in with Martinstag, which is a German traditional holiday, which emphasizes gratitude and sharing with St. Martin. So this is becoming an annual tradition with Martinstag and the parade that the kids do with their lanterns. Another thing that we've done is we've piggybacked off of the Communications Committee and a lot of the videos that they have done to create some new Tcgis videos for fundraising as well. So video is I think a really good medium to use in addition to, you know, emails and run brief things and stuff like that. We've also been using robocalls and text messaging, which has also been really helpful for fundraising. We had board matching funds for Give to the Max. This year, the match was $10,390. And we had 100% board participation for the second year in a row. So I expect that to become an annual event as well, or an annual aspect of it. We have other things that we've done this year. We've really embraced a lot of the capability in the Little Green Light software. Katerina has really gotten adept at using that. Recurring donations is something that we're trying to emphasize, which will help us with predictability. If we know that we have regular donations of a certain amount, it will help us predict where we're going to be with our donations. Corporate matching funds, we've really tried to emphasize that, since it's a benefit that a lot of parents have, so they might as well use it because it'll make their donation go that much further. So this year we've already raised almost $20,000 in matching funds. Now we have our spring fundraising campaign, which is the second thing that we do. We had a used book fair earlier in April. And now we're doing tribute gifts and the annual spring fund, annual fund appeal, where we wanted to raise 20K by the end of May. The book fair was a 2-day event this year. And we also, in conjunction with that, we did a capstone Chicago trip fundraiser, which was really successful, and raised almost $2,000 for them there. And to date, we are at actually more than that. We're at like about 103,000, a little bit more of our 110,000 goal for the year, with you know, about 6 weeks to go to the end of June. So I'm confident that we will make that goal. So thanks to all of our dedicated committee members for helping make that happen, and to our community for donating.
Awesome. All right, Governance and Leadership Committee chaired by Director Albers.
Thank you. Yeah. A huge thank you to the Governance and Leadership Committee. Unlike the other committees that have gone, mine has not stayed the same with the date and time, and it's been quite the shuffling committee to accommodate my grad school schedule, but also to get as many of us there as we can each month to work on such important pieces of our school. So thank you to Sarah Knopf, Nicole Kreschel, Lisa Linnell, Elizabeth St. Benig, Lori Hartman, Danielle Billing, Richard Hyde, and Julie Alcatu for being there along the way. It's been awesome. Accomplishments that we've gotten to this year is we have approved all of our policies that were slated to be approved in what is known as year 2 of the year, the 3-year track. So they've all been approved, or almost all approved. We'll get the last few in tonight and next month. And that's a great thing to have done. And we've got it down to a science almost too, where we don't have any first readings in the last few months. So that way we don't have to worry about anything getting stuck in June and waiting until August to kind of roll over. Policies have been read 3 times each, which I believe is more than once more than required. So they're being read very thoroughly. And within that, going to the last bullet point, we've really looked for outdated statutes this year. It's been a huge thank you to those that are working in the educational law area of the world, and also looking for those inclusions of diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. We've successfully done our board election for the year, and the non-com held strong. And we've added a few new policies into that 3-year rotation, including the calendar policy, the zero waste policy, and the board member ongoing education policy. And we have more to add next year. So I look forward to the 22-23 year.
Awesome, thank you. All right, and Mission and School Culture Committee led by Director Linnell.
Fantastic. We don't have a cool hashtag like non-com on my committee, which is I always want to, but I've enjoyed being on non-com. Mission and School Culture, thank you to the following folks. I'll first start with Julie Alcatooth. That is my error for not adding you. You play such a big part in this committee, but also Ashley Weston Miller, Danny Nicholson, Stacy Flanagan, Emily Albers, Zilka Muller, Claudia Mueller, Suzanne Schecker before she left school, Erin Myers, and Esther Noy. They've all played enormous roles in getting some very a disparate set of projects off the ground, but things that needed a home, and they often end up at Mission and School Culture. And they are, we've been fortunate to have people that are really passionate about all of them, which helps make light work. So first, adoption of the school zero waste policy. Ashley was especially helpful in getting that policy developed, thinking about areas where we can find some partnerships where we can get some money or get some expertise, making that happen. We established the Special Education Advisory Committee as a standing committee under Mission and School Culture, so that special education has more of a direct line to the board. We hear about it more often, and we have more input and more connection to that part of our school. We helped over the course of 2.5 years overseeing the process for getting our World's Best Workforce annual reporting up and running under the Curriculum Advisory Committee, which is now under the leadership of Esther Noy. So great to be able to take something on in a committee and launch it and have the right person doing the work going forward. It doesn't need to stay in this committee. It has been successfully launched into administration. We have the 3rd annual Tcgis Community Garden, which we started as a project in this committee. It has been planted this past weekend, and that will be a nice community builder over the course of the summer. And then we have a new connection between District 10, the Como Community Council, and our Girl Scout troop to help maintain the rain gardens that are very close to Tcgis. We thought that was a natural connection between D10, the school, and show our commitment to the Como community. One thing that I neglected to add to this, but I want to make sure that it's highlighted as I roll off the board so that it has a home and continues, is advocacy. Things like the Charter School Advocacy Day, making sure that we have representatives of that so that we go talk to those at the state capitol. Kirsten would join me this year for that. It was fantastic. We are, the school sits in District 66, which has been redistricted. So there will be a new state senator next year. So we definitely want to make sure that next year in March, when that event comes around, that we meet our new senator and establish that connection, invite him or her to the school. St. Paul City Council has proposed redistricting, so we may be moving from Ward 5 with Amy Brenmone, who lives right across the street, to Ward 1, which is currently represented by Diane. So those haven't been approved yet, to my knowledge. So we may also have a new city council rep. So we would want to also make a connection there and have a good, strong relationship with the St. Paul City Council going forward. So hoping that will also be part of our accomplishments in 22-23.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right, before we do this slide, I just wanted to wrap up the committee acknowledgements and just say you guys are amazing. I mean, all that was accomplished this year. With your leadership on the board committees, we have 6 really active and really successful board committees that did a lot and incorporated a lot of volunteer power. So I'll make a public announcement that if there's people that would like to be involved next year, we always welcome new volunteers to join our board committees. We've had many people that have served for a while and I'm sure would like to take a break. So we welcome fresh energy to our committees. And as you can see on this slide, we are losing 3 key committee chairs. So it's my pleasure now to recognize our 3 board members who are ending their term and rolling off. I'll start with Lisa Linnell. Lisa Linnell is our vice chair. And I won't ever forget the first breakfast we had together where we discussed board business and plans for the future. And I asked if she was interested in being the vice chair and the administrative liaison, which is a huge role on our board. And she was brand new to the board and she said, yes, I can do that. I was like, oh, thank God. So thank you for jumping into that role right away. And these past 3 years have been really amazing with you on the board. I view you as my right-hand woman and rely on you for consulting, strategic thinking, commiserating, all sorts of things. So I thank you for that. And I thank you for your friendship. I would describe Lisa as thoughtful, reflective, dedicated, pragmatic, strategic, action-oriented, political, hilarious, and a true keyboard warrior.
Thanks for leaving off bossy.
See, she's funny. Lisa is an advocate of the students. And she's an advocate of families of all socioeconomic backgrounds. I would say her signature saying is, I made caramel rolls. And at board meetings, we will miss her parliamentary guidance. She always lets me know when I'm doing it wrong. We'll miss her home-baked goods and her sense of humor. And we prepared some awards.
Ooh, swag.
You can see this on Zoom. This is a nice little award that says Lisa Linnell, Board of Directors, 2019 through 2022. Innovative education of the whole child through German immersion. Herzlichen Dank for your leadership, direction, and contributions toward fulfilling the Tcgis mission. All right, next, Director Iwin. Also, 3 years on the board, joined with Lisa and Richard. Rich joined during a pretty tumultuous time for our school, and I was grateful for his support, being willing to join the board and really advocate for the school with our building project. He was a strong advocate before joining the board, and as was Lisa, by the way, as a keyboard warrior. And so it's been really great to have you on the board and get to know you and get to know your insights. I would describe Rich as committed, rational, straightforward, and thoughtful. Rich is an advocate of academic achievement. He's also an advocate of diversity. His signature saying is, I was laying awake last night thinking about this. And at board meetings, we will miss his detailed thought process. So we also have an award for Rich Iwin. All right, Director Bell. Director Bell was on the board for a couple years before I joined, so she is definitely the longest reigning member of our board here. So you bring a lot of historical perspective and energy, and you really recreated our fundraising program. I know when you took on the role of chair of fundraising, you set aspirational goals that were well beyond what we had ever envisioned before. And not only that, but you figure out ways to make it happen. So nice work. Diane is passionate, driven, goal-oriented, competitive,
What?
but also collaborative and strategic. Diane is a strong advocate of German immersion. And she's a strong advocate of our identity as the Twin Cities German Immersion School. We don't just serve St. Paul. Okay. We all know her signature saying, right? The tyranny of or versus the genius of and. Diane never wanted to give up on anything if there's a way to have both and. It was never just this or that. So she was visionary in that way. And at board meetings, we will miss her excellent insights and questions. And here is the award for Diane Bell. And this one is 2017 through 2022. So thank you for serving for 5 years.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
Because you gave me a perfect segue.
Okay.
So the genius of and versus the tyranny of or. I'm going to give you guys all something to remember me by. All right, so that saying was not invented by me. It was invented by a guy called Jim Collins. And I had to read this book at my last employer, MTS Systems. So it's not brand new, it's like from 2002 or 3, I think. But there's a lot of really good stuff in here that still pertains today. And so I have a little handout here for all of you guys that talks about the concept of the genius of the and versus the tyranny of the or. So you can read that when you're lying awake at night. And I also have something else that I want to give you guys, which is, this is the book where he actually expounds on that. So I've marked it for you. Since I won't be here for the next retreat.
Did anyone change anyone?
Sounds like electronics.
Wow.
Are we good now? Okay,
Right,
that was funny.
that was very interesting. It was like getting over.
This is so awesome, Diane, that you actually printed this.
Did you guys coordinate?
No,
Okay. Wow.
I told you, it's her signature saying.
It's me, you know what, this is, I've found application for this in every single walk of life, you know? And I think that it pertains to a lot of things, and I would encourage the board to remember this, you know, when it's like, should we add another room, or should we expand to high school? For instance, all right, I'm kidding about that. But anyway, this book I think is a really good read for you guys. Somebody, I'll give it to Julie to start out with. You can read this, and then at your next retreat, you can hand it off to everybody. But here is the no tyranny of the or, embrace the genius of the and. And then here's another thing, which I think is kind of good to remember too, is good enough never is. So
That's
with
awesome.
that, I want to say thank you.
Wow, thank you.
For being able to
The last.
share really great experiences with you guys and to grow and to learn. And I'm sad to not be here anymore, but I'll be watching. And I'm available for being a sounding board or anything you guys would like, but thank you for everything. And I'll miss you guys.
Well, we'll miss you too. We do thank you though for recruiting Kristen Wright.
Yes, and I did want to point
Because
out,
we will be in fantastic hands with her.
she is ready to take my accomplishments and smash them. So, I don't know about that, but she's gonna do a fantastic job, so.
All right. Well, thank you all.
We finally took her St. Olafness and pushed out the 2 Carlton members. of the board
Yeah.
At the same time.
Well, I'm also losing one St. Olaf member.
Bringing out another people.
You guys are funny. All right, we recognized them this month, although they officially serve until next month. And next month we'll have the board turnover partway through the meeting. But Diane and Rich will both be in Germany next month. So we wanted to have our celebration a little early. All right. Next on the agenda is the Committee of the Whole. The Committee of the Whole met last Wednesday in preparation for this meeting and discussed many of the items that we'll be considering for approval tonight. And specifically, I wanted to point out the bylaws. The bylaws have been discussed at Committee of the Whole and at board meetings for several months, it seems. And I think we're finally ready to approve them. All the edits are in the board packet. And the most recent one is a change in the indemnification. Are
Fun stuff.
really interesting things, but there are changes there. And it's all legalese things. Our lawyer reviewed it and made sure that we're in compliance with Minnesota state law, which has recently changed regarding indemnification. And that review was done in part to prepare for the authorizer contract because they needed that update in our bylaws. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the bylaws as shown in the board packet. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Director Albers. Discussion on the bylaws. This is what happens when we review them for months on end. All right, hearing no discussion. All those in favor of approving the bylaws, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries. Thank you. The other important announcement that came at Committee of the Whole last week was from Director Roth-Ustig. She shared with the board that she will be resigning her position effective June, so next month. And we're sorry to see Yasmin leave. So it's been a good year, and you being on the Diversity and Belonging Committee has been exceptional. We saw all the awesome work that you guys were able to complete. So thank you for your service to TCGIS on the board. And we'll see you next month. But I did want to announce this in this public forum and mention that we put a call for applications in the Rune brief. So if you scroll to the bottom of the Rune brief where the board announcements are, there's a call for applications to complete Yasmin's 2 years remaining in her term. So per our bylaws, the board may appoint someone to fill vacancies. So we're looking for applications of all types. So that includes teachers, it includes community members and parents. So we wanted to extend this invitation to all members of our community. There's an application linked in the run brief to fill out and just email it to the board. And we'll look at all the options and hopefully be able to make a decision in June at the next board meeting. All right. That brings us to our director's report. So I will turn it over to you, Director Christensen.
So I'll start out with enrollment. I'm just going to focus, since we're winding up the year, I'm just going to focus on next year. We are currently at 629. You can see where the room is for growth. It's in our middle school, as it typically is. Since last month, we have lost one current fifth grader who would have been a sixth grader. Family was very open about the reasons for that. Lots of friends in their neighborhood, and the neighborhood kids are moving on to a particular middle school, and was just kind of a pivotal moment for them. And this is an ongoing challenge we have at retention in the middle school grades, specifically fifth grade, because other middle schools start at sixth grade. So it's kind of a challenge sometimes, but so we only lost one, which is good. I wanted to also mention that we had a new family welcome night on Tuesday or Monday, whatever, I'm losing track of the days, Tuesday. 36 families signed up for it. I didn't count heads, but we had a full cafeteria of mostly kindergartners, one new fourth grader and her family came. It was a delight to see them. Some of them are returning families, you know, siblings, mostly new families though. I'm really grateful to the front office staff for all the work they did to organize that and make people feel welcomed and aware of all of the details of being part of the Tcgis community this far ahead of time. That's really exciting. I am going to turn off my screen sharing here for a second because I have our HR update, staffing update is that I'm delighted to be able to introduce Andrew Haugen as our brand new Dean of Special Ed, who is in day 9 of his time here with us at Tcgis. We actually made the offer to him some time ago, and the way his contract worked at Robbinsdale Schools, he wasn't able to wiggle out of that contract before now, and we're delighted that he was able to join us before the end of the year, which is going to make for a very smooth transition into next year. We've wanted for a long time to have this position in-house, and we haven't been able to do that, and so we're really excited, and so he's here with us, and I'm going to stop sharing so that he can introduce himself. That's why the screen was blank, because he's here in person. Andrew, you're here, right?
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to join your team and to see you all. Hopefully we get a chance to meet in person sometime soon.
Want to tell us a little bit about your professional background?
Yeah, so like Kirsten said, I've been at Robbinsdale area schools for the last 4 years, where I served as a special education coordinator. In that role, I spent a lot of time in classrooms supporting teachers with their instructional design and implementation, and addressing student behavior and academic needs, collaborating and coordinating with families for improving student outcomes. And yeah, and so before that, I'm a licensed DCD classroom teacher. So I worked in self-contained classrooms with students with severe, profound intellectual disabilities and medical fragility. Yeah, that is, this is my 10th year as a licensed teacher.
We're thrilled to have Andrew on the team. Thrilled to be able to, as I said, have him here before the end of the year, and looking forward to starting the year with him in place. So help me welcome Andrew.
Great to virtually meet you, Andrew. Thanks for
Thank
attending
you.
tonight. We're excited to have you here.
Okay, so now I have to find my slideshow again. It kind of disappeared.
I'm gonna need a better view of that board game shelf at some point.
Yeah.
Are you speaking about the board game shelf behind Andrew?
Mhm.
Okay.
Can you get a clear view of that? It's getting a little out of control, but it's
Yeah, no,
nearing
I said, I'm gonna need a clearer view at some point. We're gonna
Yeah,
have a lot to talk about.
there's nearly 200 there. So yeah, we could talk for a while.
Awesome.
Like,
The Geek Squad emerges, right? That's awesome. Okay. So other HR updates. We have an awesome kindergarten teacher who's going to be coming to us from Germany, a well-established teacher. He's going to be fantastic. I'm totally blanking on his last name. His first name is Tobias. We are hiring in 3rd and 4th grade, in middle school science, in elementary and middle school squat, in middle school drama and or music, and we're looking for a middle school language immersion specialist. So we have been interviewing like crazy for these positions. And I just have a little phrase at the bottom that I think is worth noting, that we have unique and ongoing hiring challenges. Tcgis is a unique school. There is really no program in the US that prepares teachers to teach in this school or in a school just like ours. There are a couple of immersion education programs across the country, and those would be the closest thing to teacher prep for this exact setting. A number of our teachers studied German in college. Some of those didn't study German education. They just studied German and came to us through their love of German and then licensed later. Some of them studied German education, which in the US means middle school and most usually high school. So very few American teachers have any preparation for teaching elementary school in German. That's an important thing to just note, that that's an ongoing challenge we have. So the most sort of exactly prepared teachers we have are our German teachers, right? Because if they were trained as a teacher for elementary school, then they can sort of make that leap. And even for them, this isn't exactly what they're prepared for, because our kids aren't native speakers, most of them. So we have lots of connections for teachers from Germany to find us, and we reach out in a lot of different places to find teachers. We milk every connection we know. We appreciate tips from people who might know someone who might be interested. But it is an ongoing challenge, and it connects directly to our mission, which is innovative education of the whole child, to which every teacher in this school is committed. Through German immersion is a challenge, right? We occasionally have to make a decision between an excellent teacher and German. And sometimes it's because we don't have an excellent teacher who speaks German. We prioritize German whenever we can, but I'm just being really frank about that, and that these are not new challenges. These are core challenges for staffing this school. So our mission is always at the fore of the decisions that we make, and it helps us reach out to find as many German-speaking teachers as possible. And I say that mostly so that you can help us in that regard. Even if you're rolling off the board, keep Tcgis in mind. We're working to try and we have this interesting new prospect coming up, that we have now Tcgis students who are college graduates. And so that's a new potential pool of people who know and love Tcgis and might want to return to us. So I just mentioned that because I don't want people to panic at the number of positions that we have open. That it's an interesting challenge we have, and we really are eager to meet the different candidates that we have. And I find it the most interesting aspect of our school is our uniqueness, right? And then being able to having the privilege of bringing staff in from Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, as well as the US.
Director Christensen, do we
Yes.
have the ZFA teacher still?
Say again?
Do we have the ZFA teacher next year?
Yeah, we have her through 2 years. She has a 2-year commitment.
Okay, she's been teaching MS science, I think.
That's not her
So
specialty.
she's being,
She sort of helped us out there, and
Yep.
she's helping us out there this year. It's not her specialty.
Okay.
She will be serving us in other ways, right?
perfect, thanks.
We appreciate her flexibility there for us. So 1 second. So Katrin Gilhoff, the ZFA teacher, she came to us in the middle of the year, and just the way that ZFA contract works, they are going to require her to leave in the middle of the year. So we know that already. It's very unfortunate, and we have appealed and it was turned down. So some bureaucracy involved there, but we have her through February of, or through, I think it's February of 2024.
Director Bell?
I was just gonna ask about, you know, the hiring channels that you use. So who, the VDA portal, are we really actively using that? And
Absolutely. Yeah,
and every open job is posted on the VDA portal?
if it's German speaking.
Okay.
And we get a lot of really interesting teachers, and we get some who are just not ready, right? So excellence is also one of our criteria, right?
Mhm.
So we have teachers whose English is not strong enough also, right, to function here, to be able to talk to parents. But we have had lots of interesting candidates from Germany, and we have some, I'll just be honest, we've had a couple of candidates where it was pretty clear that they didn't necessarily know much about our school, but we're just looking for an adventure, to teach for a year or two, but didn't fit kind of for what we were looking to, not in a bad way, right? Looking for, hey, I think I'll just go teach somewhere, but there's just a variety of applicants that we get. I'll just say that.
Who's our liaison here with like when German teachers, are they reaching out to you directly? VDA people?
They typically write to me, but the applications go to an application portal. They usually write, address their letters to me, but it typically goes to an application portal, and Katharina gets them and screens them, and she has Infogespräche with she's extremely adept at looking through candidate materials, screens them, brings who she thinks are the ones, explains them to us really well, and then asks for approval for Infogespräche, right? Just initial conversations with them. And then depending on those, she's really good at saying, she knows what's needed. For example, to get a teacher a visa from Germany, they have to have had 2 years of German experience. So we have some fresh graduates who simply couldn't teach for us because we couldn't get them a visa, even if they might be good. So she's also good at keeping an ongoing list of people she's interviewed previously. She's very good at that and looping back to them and inviting them again to apply later, or telling them that we'll be interested in them. We can't hire you because of a visa issue, but we'd really love to have you as part of our community. So she's really good at building those relationships.
I'll allow it. Go ahead. I do have a question about the MS drama / music. I read the kind of the job description, and it wasn't clear to me if the focus is drama or the focus is music. And has there been discussion on how you envision middle school arts music to be? What's the goal there?
The goal is going to be determined in large part by who we can get. It's just plain being blunt, right? So we can't just say we're going to do drama if we can't find anybody in drama, right? So we've had applicants who can do both. And we have, our pool includes people who could do either and both. We've had parent requests over the years for music over drama or more music. Our drama classes all include music, but they're not specifically music. So I appreciate the question, right? It's unique that TCGIS focuses so heavily on drama, and it certainly fits within the German tradition in many ways, but it's going to be determined by availability.
So you cast a wide net and see who you get.
Cast the same net for that position that we have for everything else.
Mhm. I just mean by the description.
Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Dr. Hyde?
The science and sport, are they the only two that are English only acceptable?
Science is
Or
in
is it-
German.
Oh, it is? Okay. So then sport is the only one?
Sport, middle school sport is currently in German because we have a German speaking sport teacher. And
There are positions where you would consider an English only applicant.
not ideally,
Okay.
right? I mean, that is a position where we would want them to be
Mhm.
German if we could, right? So the only positions that we have that are committed English teaching positions are English literacy, 3rd grade and up, and math 5th grade and up, right? So those are intentional English positions. So what I'm talking about, right, where we might have to hire someone who speaks English is if German speaking staff is simply not available and we need to fill a position. And we have a couple of examples, I'm not going to name names, we have a couple of examples around the school. And they're, fully committed members of our team. And so I think it's just important for us to know as a board that our commitment to German immersion is firm, but connected to real factors, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more question? I'm sorry. The middle school language immersion specialist position, is that part of what you'll speak?
No, it's a new position. It's not one that we've had before. We have a brand new position for that in elementary school this year. It's basically kind of an extra teacher who helps specifically, who speaks German and can help in the classroom in a way like an intern. But before we had interns, they're licensed teachers, but sort of floater extra teachers.
So it's a newly created position.
Mhm.
And this is for middle school.
Right, because we have one in place for elementary school.
Are we replacing the DUF DSD1 position in middle school? Is that a hiring? I mean, the position that's just been resigned, is that also in part of this 2022-23 hiring here?
It'll probably be some rearranging. It could be of existing people.
Okay.
Thank you. Mhm. Okay. A little more about HR stuff, some staff retention for this year. I hope we can just pause for a moment here to look at these numbers. Our total staff are 108. We have 10 departing staff, which leaves us with a total staff retention rate of 90.7. That is an astonishing rate in this year of all years. Our teacher count is 52. We're losing 8 teachers. We miss every single one of them. Any departing member we're sad about it. That leaves us with teacher retention of 84.6%. So you'll note the asterisk note below, we have 2 teachers who departed early in the year. So the stats I give you above are from now to next year. From right now at the end of this year, those who are with us now and will be with us at the beginning of next year. We have 2 teachers who departed, one very early in the year within the first month and another who departed a little later in the fall. So those 2 teachers, when we count them, bring our retention rate lower, and I've given those statistics below. So you have them. And then the reasons are varying. We have a number of staff, I think 4 staff who are pursuing other professional opportunities. We have 1 staff member who is going to graduate school and has already committed to returning. She's very excited to return. We have 2 German staff members whose spouses and they had sort of complex family issues that are causing them to return to Germany, not as a result of not wanting to be here, but just needing to consider broader family concerns. And I think those are all the motives behind those, the reasons behind those. I put this little box here. We just completed our organizational health survey. A lower response rate than Tcgis typically has really high response rates. This is considered an excellent response rate, generally speaking, in the survey world. But it's low for Tcgis, I'm just noting that. I think that speaks to the fatigue. We've had more surveys this year than in a typical year because we're asking about a lot of different things, and that could have contributed to it. We're just all really tired, right? So we didn't ask a question. In retrospect, we might have asked a question. We did ask the question, have you looked for another job in the past 2 months? And you see the response rate here, that over 30% either said yes or they preferred not to answer, which makes one wonder, right? Another question, a more nuanced question, might have been, another job could be another job within education, right? So it would be interesting to ask, have you considered leaving the profession? That would be an interesting, question. I think we've all talked previously about the survey that the National Education Association did in January. About 3,200 teachers were surveyed, and of those, 55% said that they had seriously considered retiring early or leaving the profession. So that's a really high number. So we didn't ask the question in exactly the same way, but I just have this here because it might nod to that in some way. And then I put on here, we had a question in there about whether they would recommend Tcgis as a great place to work, and 78% said they agreed or strongly agreed. And I think it's another, I can't remember the exact percentage, we had slightly agree, and I didn't include that here, but the percentage of those who, nobody strongly disagreed, 1.7% disagreed and 5% slightly disagreed. So it was overall satisfaction with the school. And of course, there's lots of more detailed questions involved there. Questions about this slide?
I was just gonna say, to that number, driving over here, I was listening to NPR and they were talking about the labor force and how there's just some new survey that came out that said 32% of workers felt confident enough to quit their job without another job. They knew they would get one. And then roughly 50% felt confident to leave, that they would get a significant pay increase if they went elsewhere. And the big issue was in-person positions as opposed to virtual positions. So retail, and then teaching is an in-person position. You have to, aside from the pandemic where you're doing everything on Zoom, but working at a bar or a restaurant is in person, being a teacher is an in-person job. And those are particularly hard hit. It's one of the things that they mentioned that's just been very hard.
Yeah, there's a pandemic relief bill coming out from the state, where frontline workers, called the frontline worker bill, that's coming out, and teachers who taught in person in the 2021 school year will be eligible for a payout from that account for that exact reason, right? Because it was just a high-risk job, right, in lots of ways. Yeah. I do want to also say that the 78%, while it might be strong, it's not strong enough for us. We would love to have that higher, to have, they say that, 10% of people in any workplace are probably not going to be happy in some way, or maybe wouldn't. So we would love to have it at 90% or so. So we consider that a motivating number.
We thought about asking what would make you, as you think about survey questions for next year, like, would you recommend this as a great place, or what would make this be a great place for you to recommend, or something like that, to elicit some sort of, like, what could we do better, for instance, to make this a great place for you to work in terms of retention?
There are some of the other questions on the survey
Do
While
they-
they don't ask that directly, I think the other questions on the survey kind of get to that about just the work environment and the amount of work that you do. So I think there are different ways to get at that.
Are there any open-ended questions on this, or are they all like buttons?
I'm blanking.
I was
There-
just
I
curious.
think there are.
I think there are.
I think there are a few short answers. Like it's built into different sections.
In
and
sections,
I
yeah.
I think there's a short answer for each of the sections.
So I'm going to move on to just a brief report about summer school. Talk briefly about the selection process. The list of students who were invited to participate in summer school was created based on the following. If a student had 2 or more Fs in classes, teacher input on awareness of need through our SWST meetings. Some teachers can help me remember what SWST stands for.
School-wide support team.
School-wide support team, I knew that. I was testing you, Emily, good job. Thank you. Winter screening data, and then embargoed and preliminary MCA scores in math and reading. Embargoed just means they're not publicly available, they're not available to teachers and, or to not available to families and students yet. So from that preliminary list, students were invited if they were in the red on MCA reading and math, meaning they did not meet standard. So we had sort of broad criteria first, and then from those, among those students, if they did not meet. And then we also looked as per ESSER 3 guidelines, major racial and ethnic groups, students in major racial and ethnic groups were considered, as well as students who are economically disadvantaged as measured by free and reduced lunch participation.
Good question. Are graduating 8th graders eligible for this too? No. I encourage you to think about that just to help shore up their skills before they go into high school, if that's an opportunity for the future.
Thanks.
Could you let the 8th grade parents know if their kids are read on, and the 8th grade kids are, I mean, moving on into high school? If you already have the embargoed information, it might be helpful to know.
We can't release it if it's embargoed.
I mean,
So
don't tell us,
it-
just say that it's, your kid is below the threshold,
we can't when it's embargoed. When it's released, they'll know. Right.
but you're using that information to determine what kids should go to summer school, right?
But it's school internal information, but we can't release it to parents until it's released from the state.
So
But
it's kind of creating they don't necessarily know why. They've just been told, if I'm.
So
We don't know which
We
criteria.
didn't tell parents, hey, the summer school kids just got an invitation.
they don't know
These
why.
criteria are internal. We didn't tell parents, hey, your kid didn't meet standard on the MCAs. None of the parents were told that.
So it was just more generic. We've identified that your child might need support. We would encourage you without going into the details.
A few more details about summer school. It's being led by Dean Elizabeth Sainfinnig. We'll have 2 teachers and 3 EAs. It will be held from July 11th to July 27th, half days, 34 students. So there were 37 students who fit the criteria that I described earlier, and all but 3 of them accepted the invitation. Students will be clustered by elementary and middle school. And the subjects, as per our ESSER 3 commitments, will be literacy and math. Whether German is included, whether they'll be doing German reading, German literacy will be dependent on staffing. And I'm going to be frank here and say that we are struggling to staff summer school for reasons that I hope you can understand after a year like this. Teachers are eager for their summer. So we're almost there with full staffing, but we're getting there. So those are the topics. And then Nicole Svan is finalizing transportation, so busing will be available for students. Just a little comment at the end. We have had some comments from concerns expressed from parents that our announcements about summer school came after they'd already made plans for camp. That is going to be an annual problem. Camps are often advertised as early as January, and we will never know what we can do for summer school that early for a lot of reasons. So not quite sure what to say about that besides that. Yeah, Rich.
I mean, one way to get around that would be to try to always commit to having summer school over like this middle part of July. So that way parents would know that, oh, if my child might, might need summer school to be invited to summer school, which they may have a sense even in January, they know that, okay, well,
We won't commit them to a camp.
yeah, I'm gonna keep those 2 weeks free until I know more, and then parents fill in the camp. So that might be the best way to get around that situation.
Yeah, thanks.
Question with the transportation, is that a requirement for the ESSER 3 funds that we provide transportation? That's just something, that's the decision we chose to make.
It's just really a lot of the students probably just wouldn't do it if we couldn't provide it, especially because it's a half day. Really challenging for parents with work days.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to wind up here with our authorizer contract. So y'all hopefully read all 155 pages of it. It's an incredibly important document. It establishes our ability to do the work that we do. So instead of going over a lot of details, I've really just picked out some highlights that I think are important for us to keep in mind. It is required by statute for us to have this contract. As you've heard me say before, we are happy to be working with the University of St. Thomas. Our working relationship with them has been a complete pleasure. This is like really nitty gritty work. It's not fun work, but they are really enjoyable people. They make hard, kind of opaque things seem transparent. They've been very responsive. I'm just really, really grateful to have this particular working relationship with them. We've even been in a transition this year from one liaison to a new one, and they work together really seamlessly. That's been really, really wonderful. And University of St. Thomas is also the only remaining higher education authorizer in the state of Minnesota for charter schools. So we're grateful to be working with them for a number of reasons, because of connections we have to them for grow your own programs and other things. Our contract has been renewed for 5 years, which is the longest possible contract length. It's an enormous amount of work, so it's really wonderful that we got that. So we won't have to go through all of this again until June of 2027, which seems really far away. Our contract establishes our legal structure and authority and our operating requirements. It measures academic performance, financial viability, and organizational performance. And we provide annual and quarterly reports to monitor our progress towards the goals that we establish. I'm just going to highlight here a few new features of this contract's metrics. This is section or attachment 2 of the contract, things by which we're actually measured. Where comparisons are made between TCGIS and other schools, the comparison group is now a virtual and demographically matched group, as opposed to comparing us to a single similar school. We feel really good about this. So we have the option of choosing a school that we feel matches us best, or being sort of, this is a fake, there's a virtual group of schools that is it's a very complex process to find schools in our region that have demographic similarities, and sort of we end up with a school that doesn't exist in real life, but that is demographically very similar to TCGIS. And that felt like a good approach. Our mission-specific goal, our mission is innovative education for the whole child through German immersion. That has in the past only focused on the DSD-1 test, and it now includes metrics on how students are performing on all of the German proficiency tests that they take beginning in 2nd grade. The SOPA, the A1, the A2, and the DSD-1. So I'm excited to be held accountable to those things since we're doing them anyway. We are also now measuring 5th grade MCA reading achievement versus 3rd grade. This is a big conversation that we're not going to have tonight, but it is typical in immersion schools, as you probably know, that because literacy is only introduced in English literacy is only introduced in 3rd grade. State standardized scores in third grade on reading and English are typically below state standards, do not meet state standards. By eighth grade, we far exceed those standards. We even far exceed them by fifth grade. So we were consistently not meeting this standard when we used third grade as our group. Does that make sense? And because there are well-established reasons for that, we simply asked for the group to be the age group to be changed by which we're measured. So we're in the 40% range of students passing for third grade, and we're over 70, well over 70% in fifth grade already. So you can see that's a pretty big jump and gives us a lot more confidence that we'll meet that standard. Parent satisfaction is now measured not just as overall satisfaction, but on willingness to recommend Tcgis to a friend. We really like that new approach. It's a little more, a little broader. We're now measuring disparities in discipline outcomes for students of color. That's a new metric. And there's overall increased emphasis on diversity and equity. And I'm just giving some examples here in student recruitment. We're being held accountable for that, board membership and parent engagement. Those are just some highlights. Again, it's a very long document, but those are things that I thought were really important for us to just kind of be aware of and that are new. So I think this is you, Julie. I can't really make a motion or anything.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the authorizer contract. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Director Hyde. Discussion on the contract.
I think it's great what has been accomplished in this process here, that you are able to have that 5-year period extended. So thank you very much for all the work that they went into.
Mhm.
It's a great show of confidence from our authorizer.
Also noticing how much effort you and Julie and board members put into that was showed how serious you've taken it and everything. So thank you for that.
In many ways, I couldn't have asked for a better tutorial or sort of introduction to my job. Honestly, than this process, right? I didn't have anyone to shadow, but this job is really, what does it mean to run a charter school, right? It's all sort of wrapped up in this document. So I appreciated the process, even though I often felt like I was figuring it out as I went. So I appreciated everyone's patience.
Yeah, I agree. I'd recommend our new board members to read the contract, even though it's long. But there are aspects of it. I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense now. Even after being on the board for a while. So
Yeah, maybe that should be included in onboarding, at least provided.
it's provided, yeah.
It is.
Not reading the 100 pages.
Apparently, I didn't know that was on board
Reading it to you.
Well, I created the board onboarding
after.
thing last year.
Yeah, that's right.
So.
I'm off.
There you are, yeah.
Me too.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the authorizer contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions. Motion carries. Yes. All right. Yes, Director Leno.
While we were tangentially on the topic of St. Thomas, when we have new board members sworn in, we've had special guests to do that swearing in the past. We've had a member from the Senate Council, Ramsey County Commissioner. I recommended a couple of months ago that we consider having someone from St. Thomas join us for that board meeting. It just does a nice way to wrap up the contract process and to welcome our new board member at the same time. I think that'd be a good transition to make.
Yeah, great idea. I'll look into it. Dr. Hyde?
Can you remind us one more time, what are next steps now that we have accepted the contract?
So now it goes back to UST and they present it to their president, the president of the college or university, and the board for approval.
But the their board has already seen, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All
The
right.
board has already seen it, and so. it's-
Well, so I think the board already approved, I mean, they approved the 5-year contract, but I think now they need to approve the contract as we agreed to,
Understood.
because it's now, we finalized the negotiations of metrics and that sort of thing. So they have to approve the final contract. All right.
And that's it for me.
Perfect. You had incident response team on here as well, but
So again,
I see you added incident response team to the agenda.
I did. Oh, wait. I thought we weren't doing that.
Yeah, I took it off, but I see it here. At any rate, the good news from incident response team is that we've had 2 weeks under 20 cases now in a row. So as hopefully you read in the room brief, we'll be back to masks optional on Tuesday after Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
We are going to recommend that, it'll be parent and student discretion, but for students who have a big event coming up that they don't want to miss.
Looking at you, Amy.
That they might consider continuing to mask until then.
All right. Liaison updates. Dr. Linnell, let's hear the administrative liaison update, please.
Yes, for those watching board meeting, the board is responsible for giving the performance review annually to the executive director. We also provide a mid-year performance review to get that process started. What we'll be doing over the course of the next month is first, Dr. Christensen will be creating her self-review, and she will be measuring herself against her director goals, which she presented to the board back in February, and then also against her strategic plan. The board then also does a parallel process where we evaluate her against both of those metrics. And we each write documents and we match them up together and find out where she in her job meets expectations, does not meet expectations, or exceeds expectations. That is delivered by the administrative liaison, who also writes this with input from all board members at the end of June. So this will be a month-long process kicking off tonight. We talked about it yesterday at administrative liaison to get the self-review process started. There will be drafts going to board members in the next 2 weeks so that everyone has a chance for input, refine that, make sure that the total review represents the totality of the board opinion. And then the administrative liaison will see a draft from Dr. Christensen by the 22nd of June. So the last week of June is the deadline for that performance review. So it's not super lengthy, but I think there's enough time that it gives everybody enough time to get their input in and to refine it to where we want it. After the review is delivered, then it's acknowledged, signed, and put in the file for next year.
So that's been before the end of this fiscal year.
Yes, exactly. That's going to be delivered last week of June. My last act before I go for it.
Well, thank you for leading that process. Any questions? All right. Let's see. Our parent liaison is not here. She is in Germany. So we'll move on to our governance and leadership development committee. Director Albers.
Yeah, this month, like I mentioned earlier in my thanks, the governance committee has been winding down already just because of the nature of policies and trying to just not overlap them into the summer and start off August with a lot of things to be voted on. So there's not a whole lot to report. There's a few things left straggling. There's, I think, 1 or 2 policies that'll be updated and asked to be approved in June. So I look forward to that, and then ending the year on a clean break. We do, however, have a few policies to consider tonight. but also the election update really quickly. As if you've read the run brief, we successfully completed our election from the week of May 9th to the 13th. And our 4 candidates, as mentioned earlier, will also be sworn in June. So we welcome them to both those online. I believe I saw Wandy's online, as well as Jennifer and Richard and Kirsten are here. So that is awesome to have their participation tonight too. So thank you. Going back to policies, I'd like to make a motion to approve policy 609, which is religious accommodations. Policy 617, which is currently missing 2 of its numbers because it's new, which is the school calendar policy. And then lastly, 516, which is student medication. So.
Thank you for that motion, Director Albers. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Director Iwan. All right, the motion is to approve policy 609, 617, and 516. Discussion on the policies.
I'll start off by saying in 609, the only things that were changed, there were some statute changes, including some removals of court cases. So some of those have been crossed off. You should be able to see those cross-offs that will be cut out. And then a few just simple word changes as well. It's a pretty short policy. Looking at the new calendar policy, there shouldn't be anything sticking out that's crossed off or anything like that because it's brand new. So that is how it is because the whole thing is otherwise highlighted yellow. And then lastly, 516 has a few additions towards the bottom in section 3, which is requirements, mainly in section K and L, which our health office looked at this policy and just mentioned that they would like medication for field trips that are just day long to be sent in original packaging, have the name, medication type, the necessary dosage, everything you'd anticipate. And then overnight trips specifically need to be brought to the health office with proper paperwork, which is located in the form. There was one incident apparently where they thought that the packaging was just, oh, there's an extra bottle laying around, and it was actually the parent's medication instead of the child's. So that's why they ask for original packaging. It's because they want to make sure, originally it said medication envelopes, but they want to make sure that it's truly the child's medication, just in case of any mix-ups. Other than that, that was all that was kind of changed in those 2 policies.
Fantastic. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of approving these 3 policies, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, next we have our Communication and Outreach Committee. Director Iwan, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes. So what I'd like to discuss today is, that I've had chairing a subcommittee to look at the school logo and brand, and that project came about mostly because last year was our 15th anniversary, and there's just a lot of refreshing, a new school building, a new director, 15 years of growth, and now maturity, and it seemed an appropriate time to kind of at least reevaluate what we currently use to represent the school. And so I created the subcommittee and was delighted that Liz Castor and Alan Thompson and Mary Henry joined to share their graphic design arts and experience in graphic design projects. We have a recommendation for a school logo for the board to learn about and vote on. And at this point, I would like to turn the floor over to Liz, Ellen, Mary, and then they can recap the process and present our proposed logo. So I'll turn it over to those three.
All right, welcome to the Logo Design Committee.
Hi, everyone. I think we'll just quick reintroduce ourselves. A lot of you have met us before, but I'm Liz Kessner. I'm the mom of Ava in 5th grade. Henrik is in kindergarten and Louisa is in 2nd grade. I'm a graphic designer for the University of Minnesota.
And I'm Ellen Thompson, a parent of an 8th grader, Henrik Thompson, and I'm a web and UX designer for Metro Transit and have volunteered on other projects.
And my name is Mary Henry. I am the middle school art teacher. I do freelance graphic design and UX UI design.
Welcome, everybody. We're glad you're here.
Thanks, Julie. So in November, we started with the board approval to move forward. We created the creative brief, which maybe Ellen or Mary, if you could add that to the chat while I'm talking in case anyone wants to refer back to that. But we kind of walked you through that at that point and had the okay to move forward with this work. So over the last several months, we've worked through creating 3 concepts, which we presented to various stakeholder groups who were defined within the creative brief. And we received 40 responses to the survey that we sent out to groups and also held focus group meetings with the board, PTO, parent council, student council, and got feedback also from the BIPOC affinity group.
Let's see. Okay, so we narrowed down to concept 1 as being best representative of the mission, vision, and values. We received a lot of positive feedback, including the abstract nature makes it open to multiple interpretations, including tiles, raindrops, conversation bubbles, world map, globe, people, diversity, cultures, colors, community, global citizenship. And the colors used tie to those used inside the school building. After the groups met, we further refined the direction based on feedback from the survey and our meetings with stakeholder groups. The designers talked a lot about this, and we brightened the color palette a little bit. We removed 1 color, the pink, decided that it could be a little bit more limited. And we carried the same, we swapped out a blue that we had, and we're using the same blue from the existing logo for consistency. And we refined a single color version, and we built out variations, which I'm going to show you now. So if I can present my screen, let me see. Okay. So this is concept number 1, global plus community. And this is the primary logo, which several of you have seen already. So we replaced the pink with a different one, a color. We just made more colors of each one. We also came up with some secondary lockups, which depending on the usage, if it serves better in different places. And that's something that Mary's going to talk a little bit about after I show you the style. This is kind of like the style guide that we've been working on. So the colors changed just a little bit. We have 5 colors now instead of 6. And we have this blue, which is the Tcgis blue. It's still Sophia Pro is the font. We worked on the sub-brands, changed the typography just a little bit and tweaked some of the designs. There's also a secondary option. And, once we kind of review all the potential places it could go, it might be anything from inside a wall in the school to over a photograph, or there could be a lot of multiple applications, and we wanted to offer some flexibility for the communications people and also any designers who are helping. with this. And so I think having these multiple options will give flexibility. And then, so these are the sub brands, PTO, Kinder Club, and then there's a Tcgis shortened version. We also, here are some examples of it in context of what it might look like on a t-shirt, some of the different variations. Little summer camp, kept the little smiley, happy faces here. And one thing that kind of came about in the revision is, this, while we see a lot of imagery in here, this looks a little bit like a tree or a flower or nature, which, has kind of an added extra meaning. And again, one of the things that we found that was positive about this particular design is that it offered a lot of open interpretations and flexibility. So this is just an example of what it might look on the website and what kind of patterns that we could create from this. This is actually the blue that is used on the uniforms, and it actually, I think, works kind of nicely. Here's the uniform color here. These are just various patterns that could be used in different graphic design applications. This is one color version. We did change it from the original solid, which we had quite a few comments that it looked like a soccer ball. We looked at a soccer ball and it didn't look exactly like a soccer ball, but we got what people were saying about it. And so I opted for a little more linear version of the one color. And I think it's a little bit lighter and less heavy. And also, again, it kind of looks a little bit like a tree or less like a soccer ball. Here's the black and white version. And then these are just some examples of one color. I don't know, this would be a business card. This is just kind of showing how we could do different treatments. And that is all of it. I'll just go through this again, just so you can see. This shape also was refined a little bit. It had a little more stout shape before, and we made it a little less pudgy on the sides. Just really, really small refinements to it. I'm going to stop sharing, and then Rich can take over from here.
Well, I think Mary was gonna.
Oh, Mary. Oh, that's right. Sorry. I'm sorry, Mary.
Okay, no worries. So this is kind of what we're thinking about with our next steps. So we want to finalize the design files and build out assets and deliverables. We want to define application. So take an inventory of all the places where it would appear, the timeline, the budget for implementing in physical spaces like signage and clothing, and develop a style guide. So we will continue to work with the communications committee to move this forward and then coordinate a handoff with the logo and the style guide.
Thanks, Mary.
Yeah, so if board members want to look at all the feedback in the packet, you need to scroll all the way down nearly to the end of the packet. It's on page 226, which is very nearly at the end. And I think also it's important to remember kind of some of the goals we had with the brand and the entire redesign project. So we wanted to have something, brands change over time. Apple is one of the most recognized, one of the most valuable companies in the world. And if you look, their logo has changed considerably over time. And we wanted to be modern and fresh, and also something that we can use more often. Katerina and I talked about, well, yes, we're all familiar with the Jumping Child logo, but it is not actually, it's not always very user-friendly or very distinctive representation, because it's kind of unwieldy. There's the child, but there's all the words around it in various sized and shaped fonts. So we don't have a lot of brand equity tied up in it. And finally, one of the big, one really important feedback we got from that, and also from the revised proposed version of that, so version 2, you might remember from a few months ago, was that even though it represents a child, any one child, it reads as a white boy. That was the consistent feedback we got, that this abstract figure looks to represent a white boy, and that is not who we are or who the school serves. It should, we're a Twin Cities German Immersion School. And I think that is kind of one of the, those are some of the really important reasons that drove this work. Just being fresh, modern, up to date, and representing who we are and want to be now. So with that in mind, do I make the proposed motion or do you do that?
You can do that.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion that the board adopt this proposed logo number 1 as the logo for the Twin Cities German Immersion School.
Thank you for the motion, Director Iwan. Is there a second? Dr. Bell seconds. Thank you. Let's open it up for discussion.
I say congrats to them. This was a great job. I think it looks wonderful.
And there's also, I feel like it's similar to the first logo 1 we saw a few months ago. But if you compare the two, removing the pink, tweaking the saturation of the colors, changing the shape, it's a definite refinement of what we saw a few months ago. And I feel like all those changes were for the better.
I'd like to speak against the motion. I'm sorry, unfortunately.
Go ahead, Director Dayton.
Thank you. Don't apologize either. I think that the logo is fresh, modern, and up to date, all the things that you said. And I think that the improvements between when we last saw the logo and now are great. But beyond the fresh, modern, and I forgot what the other word was, I don't see the identity of the school in the shape, and I worry about that. I think we're making improvements, but I just don't think it's ready yet for adoption. When I think about a logo, like you mentioned the Apple logo, right? I think that logo has changed considerably, but I still see Apple in it, and I have always seen Apple in it, and I don't see Tcgis in the shapes that are here. And I think maybe if we had some more, like, I say this in a very privileged position because I didn't attend any of the committee meetings to get to this point. So I recognize that as well. But I think if we had more, if we open it up more to the community to show options to folks and say, like, what do you think about this one, and this one, and maybe have people vote on it or something that could solve some of the things that I'm seeing in it. But if there's going to be a shape associated with the letters, right? I want to see the school in the shape, and I don't right now. So I think for that reason, and not because of all the work that has gone into this, because I think it's amazing, and I think it's great that we're rethinking how we identify with the school. But for those reasons, I'll be voting no.
Thank you for your feedback. There was, I did get the 3 logos were presented to, like Liz said, to a variety of stakeholders. So there were opportunities for larger, community to weigh in. But thank you for your comments. I appreciate your honesty.
I'm curious if the designers have any comments regarding that, like seeing the school in that shape. Could you comment on how you see the school in that shape?
I think Ellen does a nice job. Maybe you want to summarize, Ellen, some of the visuals and in particular I think the diversity and community aspects of it.
Yeah, I think the world, which was included in the other logo, is repeated in this logo, we removed the child because we didn't want it to be just one representative, one gender. And so the little shapes also represent people. And I think I'm not sure how you would represent the school. We did look at the German angle a lot, try to find symbolism in German, but we ended up running into issues with that, of it looking, too German or so that wasn't really a direction we could pick without it looking, I don't know, nationalistic, or I don't know if that's the right word. And then we did look at, other ways to present school. And so one of the designs we did was a shield. And the shield, while it looked more like a school of what people think as representing a school, it also came off as looking like a private school, which I know we've tried to avoid a lot, that charter schools are not private schools. So it had, a lot of merits, and it did look more like a school logo, but it's really difficult to say all these things in one image. And I think when people become used to seeing it, then it will take on that identity, but that takes time. It's not, it was a big challenge to, like, how do you say that, which is why we collected initially a survey, and we had like over 100 words that we had people describe, and we worked through a lot of different imagery on what that would be, and including the existing one, which, I think all three logos that we came up with and options were good, and they all had, they're all strong and had various merits. So this is the one that had probably the most positive feedback from the community. And the others had positive feedback too, but had also negative, more clear negative feedback. And so, this was a really thought out process. It wasn't, done. We put a lot of thought into how to choose those directions, and that was based on a lot of community input. So it wasn't based on our own personal tastes or what we thought might be cool or modern. It was really based on a lot of feedback. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Liz or Mary.
I would just echo exactly what you said, Ellen, is that we, taking into consideration our results from the survey and finding kind of the vision for what our community members were saying, what our students were saying, what our parents were saying, we were able to take this one logo and modify it to kind of fit the vision that was expressed in that survey, and then also through that community survey earlier before we started this process.
Thank you, that's helpful. Director Linnell.
I will speak in favor of the motion, but in doing that, I want to say, just compliment the process that was taken to develop the ideas, having a vision and executing it along the way. And also those that provided feedback, including Director Dayton. It's so clear that people care very much about how this represents the school and where they see it being used, what it represents, what you think it might represent, but maybe it doesn't do that quite clearly. So I only participated in as a board member, but I heard and read some of the other feedback along the way. There's a great deal of care and opinions expressed throughout, and that was done with great care and professionalism all around. So I want to compliment the process. And I as I said, I do say all of this in favor of the motion.
Thank you, Director Leno.
And the question is, how generic is this, or how specific to the school is this? And how good is this logo in 10 or 15 years? You don't want to change a logo every 2 or 3 years because people don't like it or don't like it. But like this looks very generic to me and doesn't really have any identity. But as director, I think so. I don't see school identity that much here.
Thank you, Director Kutsinga. Director Bell.
Did we look at, this is a question for you, Rick, you and the designers. Did you look at other German immersion school logos? when you were doing this, just to see how they portray themselves?
I don't think we looked at other German immersion schools. I mean, the 5 or so that are in the United States. We did look at we looked at probably a dozen or so other schools.
There's a German immersion school, I think in Brooklyn, that there was a visitor to our school who was on Instagram, and I noticed that he visited that school as well. So yeah, we actually compared it to many immersion schools and specifically charter schools within the Twin Cities as well, and around the country, I suppose, too. I think Ellen in particular recently pulled up a number of really well done examples from the Hmong Preparatory School, I believe is the name. But
I'm just looking at like I just pulled up the German Immersion School in Chicago, see what their logo looks like. It's just something round with like the Chicago skyline, and German Immersion School Chicago. The Rilke School in Alaska has like I don't know what this is.
It's probably just their
Panther?
mascot. It's their mascot. I
Yeah.
assume. Or maybe it's, I mean, Rilke has a famous poem about a panther, so.
Yeah, well, it looks like a panther, yeah. Anyway, and then Yinghua just says Yinghua Academy, and it has some Chinese symbols. You know, I don't know to what extent we have to. I mean, I feel like unlike Apple, where there's obviously a lot of brand equity associated with that logo, or any other corporation, I don't know that we, you know, the Twin Cities community, if you ask them what's the Twin Cities German Immersion School logo, if they would know one from the other.
If it would be helpful, I could pull up just a brief thing showing what we, looked at, if it would be helpful for people to see.
What would you like would you like them to go back to? What would your suggestion be to, to allay your concerns? What would you like to see done?
Yeah, I'd like to keep working. I don't like, my no vote tonight is not no, let's throw it all away. It's a no, let's keep all of this and keep working on it. And I think the colors are great. I think the typeface is great. And the symbol is beautiful, but it doesn't mean anything to me. I don't see the identity with the school. So I want to see the symbol turn into something that our community can identify with.
Do you have an idea, like when you say to identify with our school, what is that like? What does that mean to you? Like, what would that be? Like, for example, what would help you identify it with the school?
I don't know.
Can I just add something? I think, within our school community, there's close ties and like kind of a history with this logo, but 15 years ago, there was a different logo and this new one was introduced, and I'm sure it was difficult at that time. I do agree with Diane that within the Twin Cities, it's pretty unlikely that someone driving by would be like recognizing or not recognizing our school logo. It's really kind of an internal recognition. In fact, the external facing communications that Katerina puts out, she specifically has avoided using this, unfortunately, because it's so difficult for her to incorporate into what's typically electronic communication materials. So I think that is like a clear reason, one of the many reasons why she, as a person who communicates largely on behalf of the school, was pushing for this update. And I do think that over time, just like any logo update or branding update, that it kind of grows on you and you learn to figure out different symbolism within the graphics. So I think there's a lot of room for interpretation with this concept. I worked on a different concept and I totally support this one because of that, because there's a globe and there's droplets and there's conversation bubbles and there's so many different ways to go with it. I also think because of the way it's formulated in the circle and the pattern, there's a lot of room to use the pattern throughout different shirt designs and wall graphics and things like that, that could be really fun and really help our school identify with that graphic over time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, if you don't mind, I'd like to just share a page of all the other logos that we looked at. Would that be so you can kind of see the context? Because I think it's hard to envision simple logo, how they might, I don't know, it would take just a brief moment.
While you pull that up, Director Kutzinger has a question.
I disagree that a logo has only goes to the internal organization of the school. The logo always goes to the outside, and you try to accomplish something with the logo. You try to show something to the outside what an organization this is. And this could be in a logo for any other school. It doesn't distinguish this school from any other school, in my mind.
I think maybe you misinterpreted what I was saying. Was I don't think people within the Twin Cities would see that logo without the name and think of the school. I don't think of Central High School in a logo. I think of it like in the building or the location. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying, but maybe I'm not correct there. I don't know.
I think what we're trying to say is, like, if we had a very distinct atrium, for example, we bring that imagery into the logo and we're communicating that out to people that are outside of the organization. I think that's what you're trying to say, which is the difference. We're communicating something with this logo. And I think that the symbol here is doing the opposite. I think it's taking external factors and us trying to develop identity with this symbol. And I would like to see it be the other way. And I'm sorry, I talked out of turn.
Director Iwan.
So I'll point out that on the website and on the root brief, the jumping child logo does not appear. Like the logo that's on the upper left-hand corner of the website is Twin Cities Immersion School with the globe, instead of an O. So the use of the jumping child logo is fairly non-existent right now. Ellen, you brought something up on the screen, so now
It disappeared though.
back to you.
Before we do that, I'd like to clarify that if you put this logo and the jumping child in front of me, I would vote no on both of them. I don't think that the jumping child represents us either. But I don't think that that is a reason to go with this before it's ready.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Did you want to share your screen?
Yeah, give me a second here. I lost where it was here. I think it's let me just zoom in here. So these are some examples of some peer review that we did. Community of peace, a lot of these don't specifically say school, but they have symbolism that is tied to the mission, maybe nature or, if you look at them, they don't necessarily say school, and some of them could be used for other things too. It's the, let's see. So I just kind of wanted to show you what we think we felt were some good examples. This one, not so much. This is not the best design here, nor is this one, but some of these are what is out there and what people are using. So I just wanted to share that.
Ellen, what was that G thing? Is that a school logo?
You're on mute again, Ellen.
Yeah, sorry, I don't remember exactly all the names, but these were all taken from the, there's a local Twin Cities, or there's a local Immersion school website, and I pulled all of these from who our peers were. So if people are looking at schools and identities for schools, this is what they would see. These are the symbols that people are attaching to their schools based on some element. It's really difficult to find one element and say, what one thing shows what the school is. And some of these I think could look potentially generic outside of having their name next to them, but they were chosen for a reason, in that they carry some symbolism that they want to people potentially wanting to go to the school or people in that community. So that's why, that's just wanted to put some context around that.
I'll call on the Director of Communications and International Outreach, Katerina. If you'd like to comment on this from a committee member perspective and member of the administration.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. I just, as people have said, this has been a really thorough process and I've really enjoyed it. And so I just wanted to give a perspective as the person who's deciding when and where to put the logo and how to use it. The one week, or at least any of our community communications, like the message that went out yesterday, you'll see actually I prioritize using all our welcome here signs because it's much more vibrant and you can see it and it's something in German. And then I kind of couch our logo in between there. It doesn't on our letterhead. When I get my hand on the letterhead, I pull the child part out. It's very faded. So it is, I have not used a logo as much, but I'm hoping when I see this logo that's being proposed, I can see so many ways to use it. And I do see all the different configurations. I do see it as the tree in some configurations. I see it as community conversation. I think about families who are outside of our school, considering our school. When I do our tours, I talk about this is a community of people from all over the United, or from all over the Twin Cities, right? You belong, and your differences and our similarities make us strong. So I think there are a lot of interpretations for this. And when I do look at other charter school logos or other school logos in general, I think it is complex for a school that teaches in a language that's also can be identified with multiple countries and other cultures, right? To how do you blend all of that into something and yet be understood as a school? And so we did talk about mascots. Should we have a mascot like another school? Do we need an animal? But we have K-8. What does that mean? So the challenge is, how do you show you're a school? And I think part of that is, how are we going to use it? And so we will be choosing how to put it out there. And we will be creating, I think, in the situations that we're using the logo more frequently than I do now, we will be also creating that meaning around the logo. So I really support this one as part of the team that needs to use it, and as also someone who promotes our school and recruits people to come. I think it really speaks to our values. And I think I understand the struggle with it's not a school, but when I look at the Avalon School, when I look at Hmong Academy, when I look at, none of them scream school to me. And school means a lot of things to a lot of people. So I think that's our struggle. And so I just wanted to speak to that as the person who decides when and how to use our logo, that I think we can also create that meaning around that and how we use it.
Thank you, Katerina. Director Christensen?
I don't have a vote. Am I allowed to speak on this?
Of course.
I'm going to agree with Katerina here on this. We, when we do school tours, we have a lot of opportunity to shape how people see us. And we talk about our mission, we talk about our values, we can talk about our logo there too, and help guide the many different things that it means. I think part of the struggle that one might have with this logo is that it is dynamic. One of the other logos are really static, right? They tell you what to see. This doesn't tell you what to see. It invites conversation, it invites interpretation. And the words German immersion school, German immersion in particular, will always be associated with it, but it does have opportunity for, we could put faces on them. We could, put them in different configurations that look like a group. I just see a lot of flexibility with this, and that, all our welcome here logo, that is not our logo. It has sort of come to be associated with this. You see that in various languages all around the Twin Cities, from co-ops to people's front yards, right? We're using that because we don't have something else. And so that also doesn't scream school. It screams welcome and equity and other things, and that we identify with. And I think there's a lot in this logo. I like the complexity of that openness. I would rather have this, and I actually think it will be more enduring than a more static logo. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a graphic designer, but I also appreciate the really deep and wide process that's sought input from a lot of people in our community. And it's worth noting all of our volunteers in our school, are professionals who bring their expertise to this work. But this process has impressed me in particular because this is something that an organization typically has to pay for, right? A lot of money for. And we have 3 professional graphic designers who have donated hours of their time in engaging our community in a process that has been really thoughtful. And I have had some of the same misgivings about it. I remember just thinking, well, is this my school? Do I see my school in this? And I really think that I can, and I really think that we can shape, that we can make it ours.
Thank you. I have a question for the professionals on the call. What is the typical life of a logo? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 2 years? I know where I work, the logo was just updated. I think it was maybe 7 years ago that it was recently done. Anyway, what's the expectation?
I would hope that
Most of the changes, right?
I don't think so. I mean, we can, continue updating.
Yeah.
In 5 years. I mean, we have a strategic plan for 5 years. When we redo the strategic plan, is that a time to redo the logo?
I would say longer than that. I would say, 10 years, hopefully longer than 10 years. I think that a good design will endure fashion and fad. And I don't think there's anything about this particular design that looks trendy or fashionable. And I think, it will, we're hoping that it will last a long time, and maybe some, once it's in use, maybe it will decide that, we only need this one format or this one option, or we don't, there could be some changes to what exists in the, we're going to create a style or a branding guideline, but I don't know that. I honestly don't know the answer of how long a logo lasts. I guess, when it starts to look dated, maybe people rethink it. Somebody down the road says this doesn't fit anymore. And I think the current logo has been past due for, a updated design. And I think it served its purpose initially, but, it just doesn't, I don't know, what Liz and
I can add just, I don't know that there's like a timeline necessarily, but I think that's a good question to bring up, Julie. I think to me, it would be more about, is it representing the school in 10 years? Kind of like what we all were kind of itching and feeling right now is the logo of the jumping child, sometimes used, sometimes not used, whatever. Is that what we as a community identify ourselves with? And I think that was part of the trigger to get this updated. And we thoughtfully, re-looked at how we could update and modernize that concept in the concept 2 that we presented. And we did that and simplified it and achieved the goals of making it more user-friendly for Katerina and electronic devices and things like that. But I think the community spoke with all of the many interviews and focus groups and survey questions that people answered, and kind of told us that there were more negative pieces of feedback we received about that imagery than concept 1 was really, like others said, positively received. So I think that made it clear to us that this is the direction to go with.
I had the chance to observe Mary Henry's art class a couple of times this year when they were actually studying logo design. And I recall one of the logos she showed was the Pepsi logo, which it's very recognizable across decades. but it has been refreshed, and it strikes me as an easily refreshable design, right? That could allow us to maintain the identity it has with the school and tweak. So if you look at the Pepsi design, you know, the red and the blue and the white, the swoopy nature, that has never changed. The font has changed a little bit, the sizes have changed, you know, those sorts of things. So it seems to me that there are, you know, to the extent that it would need to be refreshed, it's a malleable, easily refreshable logo. It seems that would allow us to stay connected to it.
I don't think you can really compare that because the Pepsi design specifically says what the product is.
Well, so does ours. It says it right next to it. Pepsi just says Pepsi Cola. There's nothing about the blue and the red swoops that says a caffeinated soft drink, except potentially that it's flowing, right? And you've poured it into your mouth.
I'm not talking about the wording so much, but the picture. That's what I meant before, with that the picture is generic, could be a symbol for any other organization.
Well,
I really appreciate all the work we're trying to do.
The Pepsi logo is just around.
Yeah, it
That's
could
all
be
I'm talking
associated with
about.
any other soft drink, it's just that
It
we
could be associated with, it could be associated with any other
Because-
anything,
yeah.
right? You could
Yeah.
keep that color and
Or,
then, you know, Big O tires could be in the middle of the Pepsi logo, right?
Yeah, I think for me, it doesn't need to be a tangible thing that says, you know, the atrium, for example, that's a physical place. That's part of our school. But when I look at the logo, it's more about what the feeling is. And to me, when I look at it, I look and I think happy. There's bright colors. It's welcoming. I mean, those are all words that were used to describe the school in the very first, you know, what do you think about when you think about Tcgis? And we want it to be welcoming, happy. It's a K-8 school. And to me, it is a modern globe. So I think it's taking that globe from the O and just modernizing it. It looks like it could be continents in the ocean, just different shapes. And I really like that it's conversation bubbles because we're an immersion school. We're learning how to speak in another language. We have conversations with each other. And I think the multiple colors is really representing the diversity, which is one big driver that we wanted to see. So for me, I see that in that globe. I see a diverse globe and I see interconnectedness, especially in the white space, because that is a connected diagram. And to me, it looks like a molecule, but that's from my science perspective. So I think it's friendly, and I'm fascinated. You know, today was the first I heard that it looks like a tree to some and a flower, and I can see that. And trees and flowers are fantastic. And I love the designs that's shown, like how you can use it different ways. It just does seem really versatile. And so, yeah, for me, it's the feeling and not that it has to represent the brick and mortar or specifically an academic institution. So those are my thoughts. Do anyone else have thoughts?
I think just to talk about like the Pepsi logo again, whenever that was created, people didn't immediately go, oh, that's Pepsi. Equating it with the product takes years. That's the whole branding behind it. Same thing with Starbucks and like the mermaid. It's like, what? I mean, I know there's a Starbucks thing, but you know, those are things that unless it's like something that literally looks like what it is that you're selling, or the name of your company, you know, like a Target, you know, for Target, but you need to work on the branding to associate, you know, whatever the product is with the logo, I think. And so I think that's what we'll have to be doing. Whenever logo is adopted, then we have to work on the branding to associate that with our school and by communicating, you know, what it represents. So I don't think that we can expect it to immediately be what, you know, for it to immediately portray what it is by the visual image of what it
if we had a really unique architecture,
Yeah.
external architecture.
Yeah.
That might make sense, if we had some, strange architecture that can be rendered graphically that we, people just say, oh yeah, I've seen that structure.
Yeah.
We just don't have that, we have a big blocky building,
We did look at structures in some of our original designs, including the playground globe that people climb on. That was suggested, and I did many iterations of how could I make that weaving of that shape, and if you are at the school, you might recognize that, but to the outsider, they would probably say, what the heck is that? That looks like a molecule, which people did say when I showed it to them. So it's tricky, to do a actual representation of the school itself, because there's not a physical, people are not going to be making that connection necessarily.
Can I just follow up and then I'll be quiet, I promise. I think it's also the vagueness of it that we've talked about. There's so many different applications of it that I think there's the branding aspect of the Pepsi logo and other logos, but they're so specific that they've stuck with those logos and it's become the identity. It's become the brand. The multiple different applications of this, for me, there's not anything that's like sticky to it. And I feel like we're not going to stick to this logo the same way that we didn't stick to the jumping child. And that's my concern here. I think we're well on our way, right? But it's just not there yet. It's not something that we are going to, I don't feel like it's something that we're going to latch onto and keep for a long time. That's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Director Dayton. Any further comments?
I just say, while I understand the disagreement or the dissenting, unless there's a symbol, I don't think that we want to start over and then have this become a new thing that we have in the middle of a school year. I think summer is the perfect time to get this started on a redo. And unless there's a symbol, I don't think we should be taking more time.
unless there's a what?
Unless there's like a specific symbol that we'd like going forward. And that's, again, not taking into consideration the work and the effort and everything that's already been put into those designs and the thought behind the design that's up for approval. And to want to start with these pieces, but adding a symbol that just, to me, if we don't know that right away, I just think that, I don't know that I'm formulating it well, but I'm not hearing a solution to it. I'm just hearing that this is too vague.
I wanted to bring up one other thing that I just remembered. So we have two logos that are going to be coexisting. We have this that everybody sees on cars, bumper stickers, which Katerina just ordered a whole bunch more of. So I'm talking about the license plate, that says Tcgis on it. That isn't going away. I mean, we're continuing to sell those magnets. We have window clings. We've got the alles in herzlich willkommen. We have those. Can't these coexist in harmony and represent, be used for different things? Now, I think one of the main reasons we never adopted this as a logo is because it's so long, it doesn't lend itself to, letterhead, or, it was difficult to use it for, various applications, but we continue to have that. That'll continue to be on people's cars driving around the Twin Cities. I see them all over. I'm like, oh, look, there's one. That says something to me, that speaks to me. Clearly it's looks like a, German or European license plate, which ties perfectly back into what our school is. I think we can have, these things can coexist, I think, together. This doesn't appear on our letterhead. That's not going to be on business cards and things like that. I don't know, is there some way that we can have some sort of a compromise or figure out a way that we can continue to use some existing, this thing, for example, to portray or have more of a feeling of the school or whatever, like Megan was mentioning. And then we have the new logo design that has applications for other aspects of the school.
So first, I think Director
I
Kurtzinger
just
had
wanted
his
to
hand up.
mention to Director Albers that Director Dayton didn't say to throw it all out. She said that this is not final yet, and this needs to be probably rethought or just probably finalized, but this, and I'm not saying that we need to throw the whole thing out either. So I think there's this great work which has been put into this, but maybe this is not the optimal thing we can get out of it.
I wasn't,
so far.
and I wasn't anticipating that either, and I heard her mentioning that. I was more so considering if we're shifting things within that logo that's already been designed, it has to fit that symbol, or the symbol has to fit within what we've already got to some degree.
Director Iwan.
So I know that we have a wide variety of thoughts and opinions on this, and they're all valid. It is 8:57. The question before us is, are we going to vote to adopt this logo now? So in the interest of all our time and in the interest of focusing on the question at hand, which is yes or no to this logo, I would respectfully ask that we call a vote to bring this to a conclusion so we can get to the rest of our business.
Okay. Director Hyde, briefly.
I have a question that doesn't pertain to the discussion of the logo in that same sense. Style guide. I very much appreciate that this has all been put together. But I want to understand what the attitude behind like a deviation from the style guide is the suggestions. You know, if we send something to a print shop and they have suggestions for spacing or something to fit on a certain product better, that's fine. Is my question.
That's getting kind of in the weeds, I would say, at this point. When we haven't made a style guide yet. Like the thing that Ellen showed is just some examples of possible applications. So a style guide that will help put together is going to be
Will be next.
That was part of the next things to come, building out the timeline, figuring out where we'll apply everything to. Yeah, but yeah, so we'll definitely come up
That
with
answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to really quickly to the style guide that we'll eventually come up with, or the brand guideline. It's not like we're saying it's a free for all. You can take all these different variations and use them every place. We will have some guidelines that will say this can be used in this case. This could be used for this. So it's not like there aren't going to be 12 different variations of it floating around. It might be that there's a mural in the school and we want to do some shapes of that repeated pattern or something like that, or t-shirts. So just wanted to clarify that too.
Thank you, Ellen. Okay, let's call the question. All those in favor of approving the logo as presented tonight, say aye.
Point of order. Because of the diversity of opinions expressed tonight, I request a roll call vote.
I was hoping I could hear the nays.
I would like to request a roll call vote.
Julia, it's on you. Roll call vote.
Director Albers.
Aye.
Director Bell.
Aye.
Director Dayton.
No.
Director Eberhard.
Aye.
Director Hyde.
Aye.
Director Iwan.
Aye.
Director Kurtzinger.
Abstain.
Director Linnell.
Aye.
Director Muller's not here. Director Wojcik. No. And Chair Altitude.
Aye.
Seven ayes.
All right, with 7 ayes, the motion carries. Thank you. I appreciate all the thoughtful discussion tonight. And thank you to the team, our design team.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is the Finance and Facilities Committee. We have a campus planning subcommittee charter to consider for approval. Director Hyde. Which page is that on?
we're jumping right to the approval.
Well, would you like to give a very brief
No,
budget?
But
status
if
update?
anybody had questions, I would answer them, otherwise. Okay, since Ashley's not here, I guess I have to do it. Put up the campus planning subcommittee charter for approval.
Yep.
Okay, so I motion for the draft campus planning subcommittee charter to become not a draft.
Okay, thank you for the motion,
Kind of an adorable motion.
and thank you for the second, Director Kritzinga. Discussion on the charter for the campus planning subcommittee. One thing I'll just point out is I added today a goal. Did you see that, Kirsten? So there was only one goal specifically for next fiscal year or school year regarding the playground, but I added another goal regarding safety and security.
Regarding
Safety and security. The goal being to work with local law enforcement to do a safety audit of our school campus, and then which they do for free, and then assess their feedback on the safety and security of our school and incorporate that into our plan.
Can we change or add to not have it be just law enforcement? Because I feel like that's limiting. There's other opportunities for professionals to have input on that.
Yep, you can change it. So each professional
Someone else would have the
input.
words.
I guess I'm not totally comfortable with this making a change to the charter that the committee hasn't seen.
We can
That's fair. I can pull the motion. We can do it in June.
table it for next month.
Yeah, we'll bring it up at the finance committee meeting. That's fair. That'll give me more time to think of those words too.
Perfect.
I gotta say, I say the draft thing in jest because I very, very much appreciate that it says draft and that's clear.
Okay, so we're tabling that motion to next month.
Yeah.
Okay. Were there any questions on the budget planning process for Director Hyde? We'll go through the budget in depth at the next committee of the whole meeting, and then it'll be up for approval at the June board meeting. Dr. Leno?
Question, I'm sorry if I missed this one, was out of the room. Will the budget be adopted by the current board or the new board after the members are sworn in?
It'll be by the current board before the transition.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Can I just ask a quick question about, since I've been absent, what are you doing for fundraising's target next year?
I think it's still 110.
Yeah, that's one of
It's
the,
still 110?
yeah, but
Although there
that's
was,
one of the things we haven't.
there was an action item to go to your committee and ask what the goal should be.
Okay, so we should, our next meeting's on June 7th, so we should discuss it there.
I was gonna try to attend it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, thank you. Moving on to Diversity and Belonging Committee.
Sure, I'll keep it short. Our committee met the last time for the school year on May 17th. We looked at the current milestones and looked at the accomplishments that we had, and you could see a lot of them in the slideshow that we presented at the beginning of the board meeting today. We also looked at next year's milestones, and there's quite a list again, so we'll be busy. And what the board can look forward to is what will eventually come out of our subcommittee for land acknowledgement. We've been working on that land acknowledgement, and we will look for feedback from experts to bring it to the board soonish. We don't have a timetable for that yet, but whenever we get the feedback and are comfortable with it, we'll bring it to the full board.
much, Tcgis.
Thank you. Questions for Director Abraham? Thank you. Fundraising Committee. Director Bell, can you give a verbal update on the spring campaign?
I mean, I think I addressed that a little bit in the committee update earlier, but right now we're just working on closing the gap between where we're at and our 110,000 goal by the end of June. We've got this tribute campaign with the flowers, garden of gratitude that's on the windows down in the lunchroom. And yeah, and I guess we're discussing at our next meeting, which is June 7th, which will be my last meeting, and then Kirsten will be taking over, but I guess we're going to be discussing our target for next year, right? So I don't know that there's really much else to discuss or to say other than that.
Perfect, thank you. Is there any new business? Okay, with no new business, we will call a recess and we will reconvene in closed session to discuss the executive director annual feedback. And we will convene at 9:15. Thank you all for attending. Good to see you, Deb.